I might get started. Thanks everyone for coming along. I'm going to be talking today a bit about what we call the Governor. It's also been released as a platform product from JBoss known as JBoss Enterprise Business Rule Management System. So the community project hosted at jboss.org is known as Governor, and it's a submodule of Drools, and that's what I'm showing now. So Governor is, interestingly, not necessarily designed for developers. So in some sense, if developers really like it, then we've probably failed a little bit. It's designed for a different type of user, or at least to assist developers in catering to the business analyst type of user. So what it is a version repository. We use the Java Content Repository API, JCR, to store business rule assets and models and processes, and also a web-based graphical user interface, and there's also some Eclipse tooling around it as well, of course. So we've broken down the types of users of this application are system administrators, developers, and domain experts or business analysts who aren't necessarily technical. The analysts are certainly the hardest audience to cater for. It's quite tricky to present complex models to them, so we obviously do a lot of work in that area, but of course administrators are important. They have to set up the system and administer it. And developers are obviously critical because they're the ones defining the models and, of course, actually integrating them with the end user apps. So the idea is this is a version repository where business rules can be stored and managed for end users' applications. So I've logged in at the moment as a user known as Pat. Now Pat has much less permissions than a full-blown user. This is all I see is basically a search screen and the ability to do full text searches and attribute searches. And most importantly over on the left here, we've got the category browser. So these categories are user-defined tags that you can apply to rules and other artifacts that make it easier for people to browse the system in a way that makes sense to how they structure their business, not necessarily how it works under the covers. And so in this case, the user Pat has been given permission to see these groups of rules. So we've got two categories of rules here, eligibility rules and pricing rules. So if we drill down a bit further into some of the metaphors for maintaining rules, so the metaphors are the different graphical user interfaces. So the most obvious and often the most popular one is a decision table. So a decision table is, in this case, this type of decision table is one row per rule. You can see across the top we're matching constraints. So we're looking for matches of for people's income and whether they have a job, and then giving them a lender's mortgage insurance premium and a rate discount and things like that. So a decision table's quite simple, and it's set up usually by someone who's more experienced in the system. They set up the columns and they map them to the domain model and everything. So looking at some other types of rules, some other types of metaphors, we've got the guided editor. So this is not unlike an inbox rule editor that you've probably seen in Outlook or Thunderbird or other mail applications, where you're basically matching for data and then taking an action on that data. Now that action could be setting the value of some field, it could be calling a method or a function or all sorts of things like that. But essentially it's just matching this area up here and then taking this action down here. These rules can get quite complicated. There's obviously a lot of different metaphors. I've just showed you two of the more basic ones. And under the covers, there's the DRL, or what we call the Drools rule language, is what's actually being executed. So as I mentioned before, you can do full text searches and search for the contents of rules. It indexes all sorts of different types of content, even documents that you upload, just help you find things. Now, when I make a change to a rule like I do here, I check in a change. It always creates a new version, so we've always got a version history. Nothing's thrown away, nothing's generally deleted. So you've always got an audit trail and the ability to roll back into things. There are other ways to hook into the system. For instance, down here I've got a feed reader, so I've got a feed to a set of rules here. And so whenever there's a change, whenever there's a new version created, it actually becomes a new item in the feed. And I can click through from a embedded browser in this case, and it actually goes straight to the item itself. Now in this case, the item I opened up is actually a test scenario, so it's not only rules we can have in there, but it's test scenarios as well. So from within my feed reader, I can run a test scenario, and check that the results were as I expected, in which case they were all correct.